Picture this. London, 1941. The city is under siege, night after night, as the Blitz rains down from the sky. And at the heart of it all stands a symbol of British resilience, a clock tower that we all know and love. Big Ben. But what if I told you that this iconic landmark came terrifyingly close to being completely obliterated? This isn't just a what-if scenario. It's a true, heart-stopping story of survival against all odds. Most people think of Big Ben as this invincible, timeless monument. We see it on postcards, in movies. It's just always been there, right? But during World War II, its survival was anything but guaranteed. Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of history and uncover the forgotten story of the night. Big Ben almost fell silent forever. We'll explore the devastating air raid that nearly brought it down, the unsung heroes who fought to save it, and the incredible twist of fate that ensured its bells would continue to ring. Stick around, because the true story of Big Ben's narrow escape is more dramatic than any fiction. Let's set the scene. By 1941, the German Luftwaffe had been relentlessly bombing London for months. The goal wasn't just to destroy military targets. It was to break the spirit of the British people. And what better way to do that than by destroying their most cherished symbols? The Houses of Parliament, with the magnificent Elizabeth Tower, what we call Big Ben, was a prime target. Now, you might think a giant stone tower would be pretty tough to take down. And you'd be right. But the bombs of the Blitz were incredibly destructive. On the night of May 10, 1941, London experienced one of the most ferocious air raids of the entire war. This night would later be called the Second Great Fire of London, Obera Thusa. Tons of high explosives and more than 100,000 incendiary bombs were dropped on the city. The sky was literally on fire. Imagine the scene. Air raid sirens wailing, the constant drone of bomber planes overhead, and the ground shaking from explosions. In the midst of this chaos, a cluster of bombs fell directly on the Palace of Westminster. The main chamber of the House of Commons was hit and completely destroyed. Flames engulfed the historic building, threatening to spread everywhere. It was a scene of absolute devastation. And then, it happened. An incendiary bomb, designed to start uncontrollable fires, smashed through the roof of the Elizabeth Tower itself. It lodged itself right inside the clock tower, just below the belfry where the great bell, Big Ben, hangs. This was the moment of maximum danger. An intense fire began to rage within the very structure of the tower. Think about that for a second. The symbol of London was literally burning from the inside out. For anyone watching from the ground, it must have looked like the end. The fire was visible for miles away, a horrifying beacon in the night sky. The intense heat threatened to warp the metal of the clock mechanism and, even worse, crack the giant bell itself. If the main structure of the tower weakened, the entire belfry weighing hundreds of tons could have come crashing down, silencing Big Ben forever. The destruction would have been catastrophic, not just physically, but psychologically. For a nation clinging to hope, losing Big Ben would have been a soul-crushing blow. But this is where the story turns from one of near disaster to one of incredible bravery. Inside the burning Parliament complex were teams of firefighters and parliamentary staff who refused to let their heritage turn to ash. They were the forgotten heroes of this story. While bombs were still falling around them, these men raced against time. Their primary target was the fire in the House of Commons, which was a massive inferno. But they knew the clock tower was also in peril. A small team had to make a choice. Focus all their efforts on the main fire, or divert precious resources to the tower. It was a critical decision. They realized that while the Commons chamber was likely a lost cause, the tower could still be saved. So, a few brave souls, armed with little more than hoses and buckets, climbed the narrow, winding staircase of the Elizabeth Tower. Can you imagine that? Climbing hundreds of steps into a smoke-filled, burning structure, with the threat of another bomb hit at any second. They reached the fire raging near the top. The heat was immense. The smoke was choking, but they fought it with everything they had. Slowly but surely, they began to get the blaze under control. They managed to extinguish the flames before the fire could cause irreparable damage to the clock mechanism. Or the great bell. It was a monumental effort, carried out in the dark, under the most extreme pressure imaginable. These weren't soldiers on a battlefield. They were ordinary people doing an extraordinary thing. By the time dawn broke, on May 11th, the scene was one of mixed devastation and relief. The House of Commons was a smoldering ruin. But against all odds, the Elizabeth Tower was still standing. The clock face was damaged, blackened by smoke, and one of the glass dials was shattered. But it was standing. And here's the most amazing part of the story. Despite the fire, the shattered glass, and the chaos of the night, the clock mechanism itself had survived. It was damaged, yes, but it wasn't destroyed. And at the stroke of the hour, through the smoke and ruin, the bells of Big Ben rang out across the battered city of London. The clock was still working. That sound, at that moment, was more than just the chiming of a clock. It was a defiant roar. It was a message to the world that London and Britain would not be broken. The Prime Minister at the time, Winston Churchill, apparently looked at the damaged but still standing tower and saw it as a symbol of the nation's unbreakable will to fight on. The survival of Big Ben became an incredible morale booster for the entire country. Newspapers reported the story, and it quickly became a legend. The clock that kept ticking through the worst of the Blitz. It showed that even when faced with total destruction, the spirit of the people and their symbols could endure. The shattered clock face wasn't seen as a sign of weakness, but as a badge of honor, a scar earned in battle. For the rest of the war, the chimes of Big Ben were broadcast by the BBC World Service. Its familiar bong became the sound of freedom and hope for millions of people listening in secret across occupied Europe. It was a constant reminder that the fight against tyranny was still alive. The tower that had almost been destroyed just a few years earlier had become one of the most powerful symbols of the Allied cause. After the war, the tower and the clock were carefully repaired. The damaged stone was replaced, and the shattered glass on the clock face was restored. But the memory of that night remained. Today, when you look up at the pristine, perfect-looking Elizabeth Tower, it's hard to imagine it scarred and burning. It's a testament to the restorers and to the resilience of the structure itself. But it's also a reminder that history is fragile. Our most treasured landmarks are not invincible. They have stories of survival etched into their very stones. The story of Big Ben's near destruction is a powerful lesson. It's about more than just a building. It's about the human spirit, about courage in the face of chaos, and about how a symbol can unite and inspire people in their darkest hour. So the next time you hear the chimes of Big Ben, whether you're in London or hearing it on the news, take a moment to remember the night of May 10th, 1941. Remember the bombs, the fire, and the brave individuals who climbed into a burning tower to save a piece of history. They ensured that this iconic clock would not be silenced, and that its voice would continue to ring out, a timeless symbol of resilience for generations to come. What an incredible story, right? It really makes you see this famous landmark in a whole new light. History is full of these hidden tales of survival and bravery, and it's amazing what you can uncover when you dig a little deeper. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.